Assalamu alaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, Ji.
Welcome to our webinar titled An Overview of Biomass Market in Pakistan. This webinar is hosted by the Pakistan Biomass Cluster. I'm Sanur Ehsan and I will be your moderator for the length of this webinar. Our guest speaker for this webinar is one of the country's most respected energy experts on bioenergy management, Mr. Rana Arif. We will now be conversing with Mr. Arif about his experience in capacity as a CEO of Punjab Bioenergy Company, where his leadership and technical input has left a huge impact on the Pakistan's bioenergy technology. I will now invite Mr. Arif to share his knowledge on the biomass market in Pakistan, owing to his comprehensive experience in the industry over the years. Mr. Arif, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. It's my pleasure to be here to basically discuss about the importance and value of biomass supply chain in Pakistan specifically. I just want to give some background about biomass potential in Pakistan, and later on we will come to the main avenues, and we also discuss about the main biomass crops residue, so that we should understand what type of biomass is available in Pakistan, and out of which what can we do for such type of biomass in specifically energy prospects. No doubt there are different uses of biomass in Pakistan, but there is a dire need to be how actually we are going to cater this issue, because in the modern world this biomass based energies projects, they are so much advanced in technologies and biomass energy projects. So here in Pakistan we have to discuss and we have to discover the avenues. I am just giving a very short brief about our experience, what actually we did during the last 3-4 years in this sector specifically, and I feel proud to be one of the most successful venture we have carried out at the platform of Bioenergy Company, and the main objective of that project was to basically to establish the supply chain of biomass in Punjab, so that the private sector should come in, because the issue is not the production of energy. The issue is basically there is no supply chain exist at the platform of farmers and the industrial and the stakeholders. So we will definitely discuss about how actually we did this project, and how we established the supply chain, and how we actually invited the private sector to jump in the biomass energy sector. So let's start from the small background of biomass. When we discuss about the biomass, we have to basically discuss what type of biomass we are going to discuss. According to World Bank reports, 26 million hectares of land is under cultivation in Pakistan, and Punjab approximately 11 million ton of biomass available for power generation potential for establishment of biomass power plant in different crop zones. The main biomass crop zones basically the category of crops are basically the wheat straw, rusk, rice straw, maize stalk, sugarcane trash, and cotton sticks like this. These are the main biomass available in Punjab. So we have to see what type of biomass we are going to utilize for energy point of view, for fodder point of view, or even we are going to make arrangement for export of this biomass to other countries like China and Middle East as well. So we have to see which biomass we are going to cater for certain requirement. So I believe there is a great potential of biomass in different areas. We will definitely discuss the main avenues as well. So there is a dire need to discover various avenues for efficient utilization of biomass. Agriculture and forestry, these are the basically perceived to be more environment friendly and socially attractive amenities. So now we jump to the main problem and the main challenge in the biomass industry. We all know biomass, we have abundant biomass available into the field, specifically with respect to Punjab, because this is one of the major, cultivated area of the country. So the issue is how actually we are going to establish the biomass supply chain management system, because there is no supply chain system exists before we started this project. So the main challenge was not to basically produce the energy from biomass, but the main challenge was how actually we can establish the supply chain of biomass. No doubt we will discuss about the different methods of supply chain for different biomass like wheat straw, rice straw, and sugarcane trash and cotton sticks. But the main challenge, obviously, it was there, how to establish the supply chain. Why we need supply chain of biomass? It is suitable for many agriculture and industrial application, mostly saved for fodders or energy utilization. It uses for fodders of the animals. So these are the main issues. We will discuss about what is the type of biomass which is being used as a fodder, what is the type of biomass which can be utilized towards energy resources, and what type of biomass which we can export toward other countries like Middle East and China as well. So as I have already told, there was no system of supply chain exist before our operations. Just because of there is no system exist, the traditional method of handling biomass were prevailing. We used to open, trolleys, carry out a lot of abundant wheat straw and dry straw over there. So no doubt there were different environmental issues as well. So we introduced different technological intervention into the biomass supply chain system. No doubt the government is investing in agriculture through interventional mechanization, and we introduce mechanization at different stages of supply chain process. The company was basically has given the mandate to establish the supply chain management system, and the primary objective was to basically establish a model of crop biomass supply chain for power generation, specifically with advanced and innovative technological features that these could be showcased to the different private sector organization. The main objective of the company was also that we should just establish supply chain management system. There should be a power plant. We as a fuel supplier give a guarantee to the power plant that we will provide such quantity of biomass on annually basis, and we will definitely there should be a contractual arrangement between fuel supplier and ultimately the power plant. So there is no issue at all at the level of power plant management that they will not face any problem for non-supplies of fuel at their doorstep. One of the major reasons why the private sector is not going to inject investment in the biomass sector, the reason is very obvious: non-existence of supply chain management system. So by virtue of this, we have basically discovered the different industrial, prospects and their different views. Uh, there are so many industries, specifically on Faisalabad, the Lahore Road, and on GT Road. They were quite interested that they want to run their boilers on biomass base, because ultimately it's a cheap source of energy. But the problem was the same. They established their boilers, but they were not running on biomass. Reason, the biomass was not available to them. So they approached us, and we tried to basically make arrangement that we will provide biomass at their doorstep, and they can utilize for their own internal uses. Another issue, basically, in terms of establishment of biomass, we want to showcase to the private sector to attract investment in the biomass project, because energy project, they are one of the most expensive project in the country, and no doubt the country needs energy, but at economical cost. So at the platform of the Bioenergy Company, we actually also approached NEPRA as well to introduce tariff on biomass. And ultimately, finally, with the efforts of Bioenergy Company, the NEPRA has also introduced tariff on specifically. So, mentioned, we actually introduce in the sector, so that whosoever from the private sector, if they want to make his own investment by himself, they can do, and the tariff is available. They can establish their power plant. Even they can manage their supply chain system with the help of the company as well. So, this is one of the major intervention that side. When we think about the efficient supply chain management system, before coming to supply chain management system, just a few minutes to basically just look into the avenues into the biomass industry. We actually want to basically introduce a commercial model. No doubt, at the end, whosoever coming from the private sector is here to basically invest and gains profit as well. So we introduce a commercial business model in the history of biomass sector. No doubt, when we are talking about the commercial business model, we put an efforts to basically identify the local resources. No doubt, on one side, we want to make model economical. On the other side, we want to tab our local resources as compared to the imported one. Like we imported the machinery from outside, but the main idea was to basically manufacture that machinery in-house within the country, so that there should be a technological shift in the country as well. So we were working on that, but no doubt it was not the major program of the company. The major program, as we already discussed, to establish supply chain management system. But we also try to tap our local resources as well where we can use it. So we also introduce this machinery manufacturers intervention into the biomass industry. We also introduce economy and efficiency in collection, transportation, and storage of biomass. More economical solution, basically these are. And also we provide the congenial and friendly environment for the farmers as well, because at the end of the day, they are the main producer of biomass. Until and unless not happy, you would not be able to get a single biomass from his field. Ultimately, the field belongs to them, and they are the wholly solely responsible for cultivation. At the end of the day, they are responsible for dispose of that biomass to commercial buyers. So we introduce different intervention for them. For example, first of all, we are talking about the mechanical intervention. Uh, we introduce a machinery called uh, balers into the field. These are the mobile balers. We introduced mobile baling first time in Pakistan in the biomass sector. Why actually we need it? Why actually we provide this intervention to the farmers, the middlemen, and the whole industry who are directly dealing with biomass side? Actually, we it should be end of the day. It should be a to be end user of the power plant. The model is very simple and tried our maximum efforts to basically put in that side. If we facilitate the end user, we have to facilitate first of all the farmers and the middlemen. We introduce the mechanical baling in the field. This is the first time in Pakistan. And specifically the balers, the machines, which we introduce here in Punjab as well. So what was the mechanism for providing to the farmers? We used to sign an agreement with them that against this baler machine, we are going to provide to you. We have to sign an agreement that on annually basis, you have to provide X amount of biomass to the power plant, to the company annually, and against which the company is bound to pay the purchasing price. So this was whole of the mechanism because we entered into the partnership with them. Even the power plant is basically is not a project that after 1 year you could not get your required quantity of mass and you just shut it down. But ultimately, it's a long-term investment. So the management of the power plant specifically, they want to see make arrangement on long-term basis. So this is one of the intervention we introduced and against which we granted to the power plant that we will provide X amount of biomass annually to the power plant for electricity generation. So this is one of the most cheapest way to produce electricity. This is one of the major example because we were established this biomass project for energy production. But it should not be like this. It is just for only the energy purposes, but it can also be used for the private sector as well for export purposes. As I have already told, China has last year created a very handsome amount of requirement in terms of biomass industry. It's about large quantity of biomass they want to import from Pakistan. So we have to make a very drastic step towards this biomass sector. Another was for local industry, the supply chain system is required for paper mills as well, and the paper industry as well. If we have a very good biomass supply chain management system, we can make arrangement with the paper industry on annually basis. So another the requirement into the biomass industry, it can be utilized for energy sources within. It's not a power generation, but local energy resources. So these are the different aspects of biomass and we were working on that. We will discuss about the business model of the biomass. How can actually we establish the business model? First of all, we have to see what is the different biomass crops available in Punjab specifically. We can talk about wheat, we can talk about rice, sugarcane trash, maize, etc. Cotton as well. But cotton basically exists in the southern region of Punjab. We were working on central and this side of province. So first of all, there is a harvesting of the crops, crop harvesting, we can say. After that, just after the harvesting is done, the next stage is how can we collect the biomass from the fields and to transport to the required destination. So if there is a loose biomass available into the field and we try to collect that loose biomass, it is quite difficult and more expensive tool. So there is a dire need to introduce mechanical intervention. So we introduce mechanical baling into the field. So once the baling is done into the field, they will compact the biomass into the bales of 25 to 30 kg. And one of the major example I want to quote over here, if we load a trolley with loose biomass, it carries a weight about 2 to 2.5 tons. But same trolley can carry a weight about 10 to 12 tons with baled biomass. You can see how much economy we can basically plug in at the baling site. So this is one of the major, intervention in terms of reduce the cost. We try to reduce the cost about 60-70%, even at the point of farming into the field. The next step is basically the transportation. Ultimately, it comes to the storage side. We have an experiment if we store a loose biomass into the area of say 1 acre, but same area can store baled biomass about 10,000 to 15,000 tons of biomass. It's our concrete study we have carried out. Again, I'm going to repeat, if we store biomass into the area of 1 to 2 acres, it's about 2,000 tons, even less than 2,000 tons, 1,500, 2,000 tons in between. But the same space can be utilized about 10,000 to 15,000 of tons biomass with baled, biomass. So you can imagine up to what extent we try to basically introduce the economy in whole of the system, and ultimately from that storage we provided to the end users. It might be power plant, it can be utilized towards local industry requirement, it can be export to other countries as well. So we actually introduce whole of the system of supply chain management system. And talking about the avenue side and its requirement, believe me, there is a lot of potential available into the country on this side. What actually we required actually the first pilot project we have done it's very successfully, and 2 years. First year was basically introduce the project into the market, and 2 years we actually carried out whole of the supply chain management system, even at the time of wheat harvesting and during rice harvesting. I'm talking about April, May, and then after October, mid, and November. So we introduced this model for two major crops of the region, the wheat and the rice. And we explored not only power plant project, because it will definitely take 3 to 4 years to establish a power plant. But before that, you have to establish the supply chain management system. But in overall, the whole system exists based on the availability of biomass. You know, biomass is available, but how can we ensure that biomass is available to me for power generation, for export, for local industry? It's a big question mark. And in order to address this issue and in address to basically this phenomena, we introduced the whole system of supply chain management system for biomass industry. We actually want this should be a showcase model to whole of the industry. It might be the power generation plants, it might be a paper industry, it can be export oriented organizations, whosoever. We also provide this biomass for one of the exporters in Pakistan who exported to the Korea. So there was a great demand for this type of biomass intervention. This is whole of the introduction about the biomass supply chain management system and how can we introduce the avenues and how can be done with the help of the farmer. One major and most important thing in whole of the process is actually how actually we are going to facilitate the farmers. Until and unless we would not be able to introduce some intervention for the farmers, believe me, we cannot be able to even get a single ton of biomass from them. So there actually we created a win-win situation for the whole of the industry. We created avenues for farmers, we created the avenues for middlemen as well. We created avenues for machinery owners. We created avenues for the local market. So they can jump in and make a success story of this project. I want to discuss one of the major issue to basically address the biomass system. One of the solution basically to run this project is we can go through cluster formation as well. We introduced and we conducted a lot of meetings with the local communities and the local stakeholders who were directly involved in the biomass sector, because it's not necessary you are going to take on board all the farmers on your system. It is not possible. But you have to basically collect the data. That is the most important task we have conducted. And one thing I just want to discuss over here. First of all, you have to carry out the surveys. What is the total potential of biomass available in that area? Either it is going to meet your requirement. What is the total radius of biomass you are going to collect, and economy, ultimate objective of this project. And in order to basically cover that availability of the biomass into that cluster, we connected with the stakeholders involved directly or indirectly with the biomass sectors. So these can be machinery owners, it can be agriculture sector experts as well, and the farmers who are directly involved with cultivation. So this is the good model to basically integrate a holistic approach. There is also the farming system available in the country, and there are the land side in Punjab is not so big, but as compared to Sindh, the land size is much more in Sindh province as compared to Punjab. So there is a great potential of working in Sindh as well. One of the major importance I want to discuss with you to basically in terms of energy resources, as per UNIDO study, as per the World Bank study, it is very obvious that the country has a potential of about more than 6,000 megawatt power generation, the cheap energy from this biomass sector. So we can realize, we can feel what is the importance of this biomass, I must say, neglected sector of the country. Reason behind, if we will not focus on that side, uh, then we have no other choice just to consume expensive, energy resources. So the time has come. We have to look into that matter very seriously, and we should create a very congenial and conducive environment for the investors as well, so that they can jump in and they can be benefited our own model. We are available, and we can help them out. Basically, how can we establish this biomass supply chain management system uh, in the country? So this is all about the biomass management system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an informative session. We really liked whatever you had to say on the biomass market in Pakistan. So let's begin with the question and answer session. Our first question to you is, keeping in mind Pakistan's current renewable energy potential, including wind and solar, how important do you think biomass is as a competitive contributor to fulfilling the energy targets set for Pakistan, for the energy targets set for 2030? And how does the global biomass market trends affect the market in Pakistan?
Um, Biomass energy sector is basically the main source for the renewable energy into the country. No doubt, the solar and the wind, they are also major component. But I'm not going to negate the importance of solar and the wind. But at the same time, we should understand in which area you can plug in energy project. It should not be like this, and in Punjab you can just put on the wind energy projects. Punjab is abundantly available with a lot of biomass. So I have already discussed the potential of energy resources on biomass is about more than 4,000 megawatt. This is not a small amount of energy resources which can be addressed through biomass energy project intervention. So I believe, no, on the other side, it is one of the most cheapest, and it is unended supply of biomass available. When there is a cultivation, and we agrarian country of the region, and we believe uh, the cultivation is definitely, with the passage of time, will increase, and there is a great abundant biomass available for this intervention. So I will definitely advocate this project at the level of province Punjab and Sindh specifically, because they are producing and cultivating a lot of crops into the country. So I believe, and there is a great potential as well. So we can, what actually we have to do, we have to tap the investors in this sector. Government should given, no doubt, energy department, the Ministry of Energy has given certain incentive for renewable energy resources. So this biomass sector should be encouraged, and it should be marketed to the private sector of the region. So I believe this is one of the major, project which can be kickstarted with the involvement of the private sector.
Definitely. So our next question is, what are the main components that make up a viable biomass market? For example, you mentioned that Pakistan currently does not have a supply chain. So what do you think is necessary to actually make a viable supply chain in Pakistan?
Actually, I talked about the major challenge faced in the biomass industry. It's basically the non-existence of supply chain management system.
Yes.
Until and unless we would not be able to introduce this supply chain management system, then we are far ahead to basically address the issues of power industry, even the exports as well. So in whole of the biomass supply chain, in whole of the biomass industry, the main challenge which will prevail until we would not address it, it is a supply chain management system. No doubt, there are different ways to basically address this issue. How can we establish. There are different options as well, but the challenge still remains there. That is how can we establish the supply chain management system?
So, how do you think we can overcome those challenges for Pakistan?
Ultimately, there are two, three major factors
No.
commerce, and we have to encourage the private investor to jump in. At the end of the day, it's the private investment who has to basically establish all these. And no doubt, I have already discussed about how actually we are going to address the problems and the issues of farmers. Until we will not pay it well to the farmers against this biomass, we would not be able to basically create a win-win situation. So I believe this is one of the major problem, the price mechanism for whole of the system. Other one is the technological intervention to the system. We have to introduce the mechanical intervention even into the field and at the storage capacity. And ultimately, we will definitely establish this whole system on economical basis. The third one, we have to introduce the avenues for the biomass industry. So these are the major three, four components we have to address before jump into the biomass industry.
Of course. Okay, so our next question is, do you think our operational structure and policies provide a nurturing environment for the adoption of biomass?
Uh, that is the most important aspect of whole biomass supply chain management system. When we say we are going to introduce a mechanical intervention into the field, what actually we want to say, we also trying to introduce the environment friendly environment for whole of the audience, like the farmer, the community, and the other power sectors. You have already seen during the month of April, May, and ultimately in October, November, uh, the farmers, when the harvesting is done,
Yes.
after specifically in October, November, the farmers, once the harvesting of the rice straw is done, the farmers have no other choice just to burn the biomass into the field because they have to sow the wheat crop for coming month of March and April.
Yes.
So ultimately, they are going to pollute the environment. Once we introduce the mechanical intervention into the field in order to produce the bales, mechanized bales, so the farmers will definitely put an effort to basically baling system, and because at the end of the day he will get the money against that bales, because each tonnage of biomass will carry a very handsome amount for the farmer, the intermediate involved into the system. So this is very planned and very attracting intervention in order to protect our environment from this burning system. We also have during the last 2-3 years, there is a smog problem into the country, specifically in the region of Lahore and Sialkot and Gujranwala, Sheikhupura. So until and unless we would not address this issue through mechanical intervention, we will face and we will definitely pollute more and more environment for all the citizens of the country. So there is a dire need to introduce the mechanical intervention into the field as well. And ultimately, they will definitely get very handsome amount against this selling of biomass into the baling form.
Yes, so our next question, more or less, like you answered that because of the harmful emissions, what like the farmers when they burn it.
Definitely, this is the same environment related issues, and we will definitely address through this intervention. We are available to basically help every private sector, even the government agencies. How can we establish this whole supply chain management system through addressing the technological advancement and through addressing the issues of farmers, and no doubt the efficient system of the biomass. We can help them out if you and other agencies want to take the services we are available.
Of course, of course. Okay, so what prospects does biomass as a renewable energy technology to be used by the industries for their captive power, and what kind of industries can benefit from it?
Definitely, whole of the system is basically evolved around the requirement of the energy. Specifically, what I believe the power and the paper industry in the country. These are the major industries based on the biomass. I am going to give an example of packages because they are running their boilers on the biomass. But again, they are facing the problem of biomass supply chain system. We try to help them out in order to basically provide or build biomass to them. So with the help of this intervention, we can facilitate the existing industries of the country involved in the power sector, involved in the paper industry. So I believe these are the two major sectors which can be directly benefited through establishment of biomass supply chain. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to repeat again and again, this is one of the most cheapest, energy source fuel,
Yes,
and ultimately this is very useful uh, uh, material for consumption in the paper industry. If we would be able to basically establish economical supply chain management system, every industry, even the local paper and the local power generation plant can be benefited through this supply chain management system. And there is a dire need to basically, because at the end of the day, each uh, biomass carries the pennies against which we have to basically cater for. And we have to make a win-win situation for all of the stakeholders involved in the biomass industry.
of course. So, according to your experience, what do you think, like, if there was an investment were to be made in one of these areas to strengthen the biomass energy in Pakistan, what area would
Definitely,
that
I will advocate to go for areas having great potential of biomass. I will, there are different areas we have located. We have identified the 5 regions in Punjab specifically. It's the Faisalabad that is abundant biomass available in terms of wheat straw and the rice straw, and maize stalks as well. These are the main sources of uh, straws for food industry, for energy resources, and as well as for the private sector industries involved in the paper industry and other allied industry. So it's Faisalabad, and again other is Okada, Sahiwal, and that can be another cluster which has abundant biomass in terms of you can say maize stocks available. And this is one of the most economical and very useful biomass for burning purposes. Another location we have identified around uh, and towards south. We have identified that location as well. And if we go to the south, Khanewal and onward, it's a cotton industry, and cotton sticks, they are very useful resource for burning. So we have identified different areas in the province. We can be, but it all depends what type of biomass we are going to cater for. Then according to the situation, we will identify the area.
Okay, so now coming to our last question, what can you say to motivate industries who are struggling or want to shift to biomass energy? Like, any motivational message?
Actually, there must be one of the major factors to industries who are directly engaged in the biomass energy. If we succeed to basically establish supply chain management system, believe me, they would be in a very comfort zone, because they want to run their operations on biomass, because they establish their biomass power generation plants, but they are going to shift to the coal and other source of energy, because biomass is not available and there is no system of biomass supply chain system into the region. So they are trying to establish, but ultimately they don't want to get into the establishment of their own biomass supply chain system. But the continuity and sustainability of the biomass supply chain system is one of the major challenge. If there are certain players available for establishment of biomass supply chain system, believe me, it's a great motivation for the energy producers in the country. So we will definitely take very concrete steps towards establishment of supply chain management system. Once we establish this system, believe me, there are different avenues where we can plug in. It can be export, it can be utilized for local industry, it can be utilized for food industry, it can be utilized for power generation plant. So at the end of the day, the main issue is not establishment of power plant. The main issue is not the export. The main issue is not to meet the requirement of local industry. It should be the establishment of supply chain management system of biomass, because we have abundant quantity of biomass available into the country. I'm going to repeat my earlier discussion. We have a potential about more than 6,000 megawatt energy resources in Punjab based on biomass. So we have to take very serious note on this side.
Okay, so with this, I conclude the session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Schedule. It was a really fruitful discussion, and I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from this. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Achal now.